At 11:07 a.m. today, President Granberg has, for the very first time, deigned to meet with representatives of the Student Coalition for Palestine to have quote-unquote dialogue about their demands to end George Washington University's complicity in and funding of this genocide. She gave student organizers, many of whom who had been arrested and faced police brutality just 2 days before, 1 hour to prepare for and accept a 45-minute meeting that would take place during Jummah, the most important prayer time for Muslims. Among the participants of the meeting was Provost Chris Bracey, who physically assaulted a Jewish student and a South Asian student on April 29th, an assault which the university is diligently working to cover up. Granberg releases statement after statement espousing her commitment to keeping her campus community safe while perpetuating and enabling the very violence and hostility she denounces. Her administration's claim to engage in good faith dialogue is contradictory when every attempt they've made to suppress pro-Palestinian speech has been conducted in bad faith. There is nothing inclusive nor productive about GW administration's feeble attempts to meet SCP representatives at the negotiation table and neutralize our steadfast resistance. Her administration criminalizes free speech while weaponizing Islamophobia and anti-Arab sentiment time and time again. First, by calling our vigil for our slaughtered family members in October a celebration of terrorism, then suspending Students for Justice in Palestine, the only safe space on campus for pro-Palestinian students. Next, by putting pro-Palestinian and anti-Zionist student organizers through kangaroo courts that serve only to waste their time and destroy their mental well-being. By allowing Zionist agitators to dox and harass Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian students. And finally, by calling upon the Metropolitan Police Department to arrest 33 students and organizers and brutalize protesters with pepper spray and levels of state violence DC hasn't seen since the Black Lives Matter protests 4 years ago. There is no dialogue when this university's administration has pursued the most punitive and repressive measures under the sun against its own students. And there is no dialogue when in their invitation to meet, they reaffirm that they will not consider changes to GW's endowment investment strategy, academic partnerships, or established student rights and responsibilities proceedings. The irony of scheduling a meeting to discuss the Islamophobia that runs rampant on this campus during Jummah prayer just proves the administration's negligence of Muslim students and genuine concerns they face. The administration facilitated the destruction of Qur'ans and Muslim prayer mats that were collectively distributed to the encampment by the community. There is no mutually respectful dialogue when this administration has done nothing to support Muslim students and community members who have had their hijabs ripped off by Zionists and police officers. How can we engage in productive conversation when your engagement with our community is so limited that you fail to make the conversation accessible? We see through the irony in expressing concern over law school finals when those who study international law see the genocidal intent in Israel's actions and know that every university in Gaza has been destroyed with the support of this institution. I'd like to share a personal anecdote that I think encapsulates her lies all too well. A few months ago, when I approached Granberg in person, pleading with her to divest from the genocide of my people, the Palestinian people, telling her that I could not sleep at night knowing that my tuition dollars go towards sustaining an institution that invests in the same state that displaced my grandparents 75 years before, Granberg encouraged me to, quote-unquote, get active in the work that goes on amongst students. and the causes they really care about, because that's important work. 5 months later, I was pepper sprayed in the face and back upon her orders for following that exact advice. Shame.
Shame!
Yesterday, you heard from my friend and comrade, a GW graduate student who has lost over 100 of their family members. And not one word from Granberg, not one word from Coleman, not one word from Bracy, not even the word genocide. Shame.
Shame!
President Granberg, I'm speaking directly to you when I ask that you actually foster the mutually respectful environment you speak of, one devoid of state violence, blatant deceptions, and threats. We affirm that despite your commitment to genocide, we will continue to push for all of our demands, and we will not rest until you divest.
Bravo!
Thank you.
We'll be taking questions if anybody has any.
Can you divulge what exactly was discussed in the meeting you guys just had with the Martinsburg University president?
Certainly. Certainly. So, as one of the members of the negotiating team, we were finally able to have a discussion with the president, something that has taken far too long, especially considering the ongoing genocide and the ongoing invasions into Rafah and other areas in Palestine. We were able to discuss and set on the table our demands and make sure that they understood that we are less interested in casual dialogue and general condolences that have been expressed by institutions throughout the histories of the crimes of both American empire, but also general Zionist entity, the Zionist entity and every other entity of imperialism around the world. However, we are interested in material change. That is something that Granberg and the rest of the administration have been unable to provide us a commitment for. Even today, bringing in the members that they have said are the members of the administration who can make sure this happens, they have been unable to commit to that. We hope that upon the next meeting we will be able to have some form of material change, but we also understand that ultimately the power in our community resides with that community. It resides in the people, the students at this university, the faculty members, the workers, everyone in the community that stands for a liberated Palestine. And so we don't care how long it takes, we will get material change around these policies, and we will make sure that it's enacted, and we will not rest until it does so. That is what we mean when we say we will not leave. But ultimately today, we finally started that conversation. It was not sufficient, and it will not be until we achieve all of our demands that we have listed out, but at least it was some form of a start.
Are you willing to compromise on any of those demands?
We've always expressed willingness to find an amenable solution towards the broader community of the university and the students, but we also understand that that is not doable within the current conditions of violence against Palestinian students on this campus, as well as the support for that violence by this institution. We understand that issues like divestment and other financial issues are not things that happen instantaneously, but the university has presented no willingness to even commit towards any form of material action on those areas. So until that happens, that's a conversation for then. But for now, we want to see some form of commitment that the university does have a concern and care for the well-being and humanity of Palestinian students and anti-Zionist students on this campus.
Is there any space for negotiations after the semester ends with the administration? And also, what kind of pressure are you intending to practice? Is it going to be more actions, more encampments, more impromptu actions?
In terms of the meetings, we will be continuing meeting virtually, so make sure that any student around any area that when they return home can continue to be in these meetings. We will make sure these meetings continue and make sure we get the commitments from the university that they continue, because we are uninterested, as I mentioned, in having just simple sentiments of sorrow matched by no material change. In terms of what we are willing to do, I cannot speak towards any planned events or anything of the like. However, I can say that we have seen time and time again that the community, both at this university and across America, that stands for the liberation of Palestine is standing with their bodies on the line. That happened the other night with the arrest of 33 students. That happens time and time again. And so we know, and the university knows, and we have told the university time and time again that we will keep coming back. We will not rest until they disclose, until they divest, until they protect Palestinian speech on campus. And ultimately, that community does not happen at the behest of myself or any other member of the individuals up here. It happens because the community understands that the liberation of Palestine is what must happen, is what is a moral necessity, is what is a total necessity of action by the university, and it is criminal that it has not happened yet.
Is there anything you saw or feel like was positive out of the meeting?
For the first time, we have had the president of our university express that there is an understanding of a collective sense of sorrow around what is happening in Palestine. So that's a start, but again, it's a start around some form of, concern for humanity that they have not expressed previously. It's something we are also, again, not interested in just having the sorrows or just the, prayers for well-being when they are materially invested in the harm that is causing that sorrow in the first place, which once again brings us back to the fact that ultimately we hope that now these scheduled meetings can make sure there's a commitment to material change, but until that happens, there will be no satisfaction from any student, worker, faculty, community member, anyone in the community that stands for the liberation of Palestine.
When's the next scheduled meeting?
I believe we have one scheduled tentatively for Sunday. We have not scheduled a specific time as college students. We are, working to go home and make sure that we can all fit that in our schedule. We will be working to also have faculty members present there so we can make sure the entirety of the community is able to be there, exchange their voice with the president, and make sure we can meet these demands as quickly as possible.
Are there any more protests coming up, or what's the upcoming?
I can't speak to any specific plans of anything upcoming. I don't have any knowledge of them either. However, this community that has shown such a deep sense of love and care both for each other and in solidarity with the people in Gaza and Palestine and facing the brutality of the Zionist state and the American empire. They've shown their care, they've shown their love, they've shown their sense of community and their willingness to always show up. So I can say that with the fullest commitment to that community, to that care and to that support, that none of us will ever be stopping until we achieve these demands, because it is the utmost imperative that this happens. It should have happened weeks ago, it should have happened months ago, it should have happened years ago.
The university has repeatedly pointed to these protests being in violation of school policy. How would you respond to critics who say, why should the university compromise if you guys are in violation of their policies?
I mean, similar things have been said throughout history at this university. Similar things were said about the student protests here against the Vietnam War, where they suspended several students only to later honor them as, acknowledge their presence as activists trained at this university or educated here. We also understand that the same things were said about anti-apartheid organizing, something the university refused to divest from, and the same with segregation, with the university being one of the last or the last to desegregate in the D.C. area. Ultimately, we understand that the established institutions and structures of power within the United States stand with the genocidal Zionist entity, and as such, there will always be structural factors at play within these rules that make sure they do not or are not enforced equally across all populations, but instead, as we have shown time and time again, disproportionately target Palestinian, Muslim, Arab, and anti-Zionist students on this campus. We have seen that time and time again with the suspending of Students for Justice in Palestine, with the several kangaroo court and student proceedings that have happened to countless organizers, and with the arrest the other night. Ultimately, they can make claims about the justifiability of their actions that were done, but we leave that to always acknowledge that history will forever vindicate the student movements that stand against the violence, death, and destruction of structures of imperialism and colonialism, and that ultimately those rules that are in place simply serve to uphold that established structure that enables that violence to continue.
So, I guess you mentioned the mental toll that these past couple weeks have taken on you. How do you respond to other students on campus who may not even be counter-protesters who say this has taken a mental toll on them, especially during finals and stuff like that? We've heard from a couple students saying that.
I have yet to hear about that, but we'd be more than happy to talk with those students. We understand first and foremost that our action was not centered around our experience, but was centered around the people in Palestine and Gaza who are experiencing this violence. These are, community members, these are students who are unable to go to school because their schools have been bombed, right? These are people who are unable to go about their lives as we do without the constant disruptions and violence that are brought upon them by the Zionist state, and indirectly through our complicity in that as students at an institution that refuses to divest from that. I would also say I would have encouraged them to come to the encampment, a place that encouraged so many members of our community through their finals and made sure they were able to, have a community and space where they were no longer alienated from their academic labor, but instead were able to do so to the fullest fulfillment of themselves and in a communal setting. It is a shame that the encampment was swept when it was because we were hoping to be able to present academic work and share the work that we do as students, and that is something that we hope to be able to do in the future, but the university will always continue to try to repress that and benefit and profit from that knowledge. And ultimately, finally, you know, the mental toll has happened to all of us. I have myself been through 7 student rights and responsibilities meetings that take several hours and are unendingly draining upon myself, and can furthermore, in working to build the community in the encampment, so many members of our community who worked that just valiant effort and labor to make sure that it functioned were constantly hounded and faced by the threatened presence of surveillance, of enclosure, of incarceration by police and by the administration, and that had an untold psychological damage on all of them here, and ultimately nothing in comparison to the psychological damage that is impacting all of the Palestinians and the people in Gaza who are facing the vastly higher levels of state violence and Zionist violence with the bombings and everything else as mentioned.
How is the coalition plan to apply pressure on administrators over summer when students may not be able to physically demonstrate?
1 second. We're going to have a Palestinian student take the question that was previously asked, because I think that input is also very valuable. Please let him step to the front.
Yeah, just to the to the question about the mental toll. I myself am a Palestinian. I've lost over 100 family members of mine in Gaza, and when discussing the mental toll, there are no words that are strong enough to describe the mental destruction, the mental emotional toll that has been inflicted upon me just by having to go about my day, go to classes, and for one, the university does not even acknowledge that there is a genocide, that refuses to acknowledge or even reach out to me whatsoever that, over 100 family members of mine have been killed. And the reality is, I am complicit. If the university continues to fund the companies that they do and continues to invest in this genocide, that means the money I spend in the university makes me complicit. And I refuse to be complicit in the killing of my own people. I refuse. I entirely refuse. And that mental toll doesn't seem to get remotely any attention. The blood of my own cousins is on my hands. It's on all of our hands. This is why we're asking for material change. We refuse to continue to hold the blood of the people in Gaza on our hands. So that's why we're here. That's why the encampment was here. So any sort of other rhetoric or narrative about safety or mental toll, what about the mental toll of the Palestinians, the Muslim students who have had to face harassment, face surveillance? I was physically assaulted by police and pepper sprayed for the fact that I refused to be complicit in the killing of my own people. It's that simple. That's the mental toll that's on me. I go to sleep every night thinking about the fact that my cousins and my aunts and uncles who live in Gaza still, some of them who live in Rafah, continue to face danger, continue to face killing. That's the mental toll.
So how does the group plan to continue to apply pressure to administrators when students are off campus and gonna not be able to physically demonstrate on campus?
Before you do that, Mike, would you mind just saying and spelling your name, please?
My name is Moataz Salem. First name Moataz, last name Salim. And I'm from Gaza.
As our negotiation team has stated, we will continue on our negotiations process in an effort to achieve that material change over the summer. I also think that one thing that we're seeing across the country is that this isn't something that's limited to GW's campus. The student movement is alive across America. There's over 174 encampments that have happened or are currently ongoing. So no matter where our students are, whether they're out of state or they remain here, there is a movement that we will continue to contribute to, because this entire nation is waking up to the genocide and the oppression that our tax dollars fund. So that escalation is always going to be there, regardless of where we are, and you can trust that everybody who has poured their heart and soul into this encampment over the last 2 weeks will continue to be true to that and continue to pursue those goals.
Can you offer more insight into Chris Bracey and the incident that has been referenced, and whether he has been part of these negotiations, which I know it's been requested that he not participate?
So we'll have one of our students who experienced violence at the hands of Provost Chris Bracey speak on this. I will say that initially, when the meeting was offered, Chris Bracey was one of the people that was in that negotiations meeting. And one of the reasons we declined this initial meeting was because it's absolutely unacceptable to put a man who assaulted 2 students in the same room as them in order to negotiate or have open dialogue. It's unacceptable. The fact that he's continued to be a presence at this university and send emails after assaulting 2 students is unacceptable. When we have conversations about anti-Semitism on this campus, our provost assaulted a Jewish student. That is unacceptable. That is anti-Semitism, right? So I'll have one of our students who experienced that speak a little bit more on her experience. We will say for the second meeting that we had set the terms of, he was not present.
I think I speak for my dear friend and I both, who were assaulted by Christopher Bracey, when we say that we recognize that this was not an isolated incident of violence. We recognize that it is part of a bigger pattern of violence and repression against pro-Palestine and anti-Zionist students. We recognize that it is a pattern of violence that allowed the university to give MPD the green light to beat, mace, and arrest our comrades. We recognize that it is part of the pattern of violence and where the university invests our tuition dollars to bomb Gaza and to perpetuate genocide against the Palestinians. As a Jewish student on campus, an anti-Zionist Jewish student on campus, I want to say that I have never felt safer than when I was in the encampment. And I don't have much to say aside from the fact that I do not feel safe with this man on campus, knowing what he did. I do not feel safe with the fact that the university continues to ignore the fact that he assaulted my friends and I, and then tries to put him in the same room as us when they haven't paid any attention at all to it. So.
Would you mind saying your name, please?
Do you feel comfortable?
Yeah, really everybody that spoke.
If you don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable with it, it's fine.
Yeah, my first name is Ruby, R-U-B-Y, and my last name is Brayton, B-R-A-Y-T-O-N.
Are the other speakers able to do that as well?
My name is Callie, K-A-L-I, last name Sen, S-E-N.
My name is Reem, R-E-E-M, Lababdi, L-A-B-A-B-D-I.
Could you do that one more time, please?
And just a little closer to the
Reem, R-E-E-M, Lababdi, L-A-B-A-B-D-I.
And my name's Robert Valentine, R-O-B-E-R-T, and V-A-L-E-N-T-I-N-E, like the holiday.
And everyone is a GWU student?
Are there any further questions?
For anyone that's not affiliated with the university, how can we continue to support their cause and their efforts?
I mean, and as previously mentioned, it is not a GW movement. It is not a GW concern, right? This is a national. This is an international one. We understand that we stand as a small, in comparison, group of students, part of a broader movement of students, workers, people across the world who stand for the liberation of Palestine. And so what people can do is show up, is be there for your community, both in times of healing, in times of grieving, and in times of action. And additionally, hold your community members accountable, and always remember that we're not doing this, for ourselves or just simply for another group of students or something else, but we are doing this for the people in Palestine and for their liberation. And we understand that that struggle is one that is shared across the world. It is one that's shared between us here in the heart of the empire in America, but also with people across the world, people fighting for liberation anywhere. And so that is always something that we must center and hold in our hearts, and that is something anyone and any member of the community can do. There are so many ways to be involved in this fight and so many different forms that it is all valuable and it is all essential as we fight for this cause.
In terms of staying connected to this encampment and this movement in general, I think one of the most beautiful things that we accomplished here is the outpouring of support from the DMV in a way that we have never seen before, especially in regards to this movement that has been so heavily suppressed and surveilled. So we encourage you to continue this engagement, because whether we have an encampment here or not, that community is not something that's lost. Follow DMV PYM, follow DMV SJP, stay in touch with the Palestinian youth movement, because we will continue to fight for Palestine until total liberation. And whether we have our encampment or not, that's a fight that continues on. Go ahead.
What are other ways we can like support us for like showing up on like email and text with like what our situation is and like what's the next like other initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, there are many, many ways. There are financial ways. It is incredibly expensive to be able to have people be able to flee out of Palestine and other areas and be able to cross the border, so donating towards people's mutual aid funds and things like that to make sure that their families can be safe and get home safe. We have done on-campus support for that in the past, but there are many, many other groups that do so as well. Additionally, I mean, that is a wonderful one. There are other support channels, other ways of financial support, and I'm sure there are other like academic areas where people have shown up for community. It is always really, though, being a part of community, of countering that individualism that allows for us to be so isolated from both our comrades here, but also people fighting for liberation in Palestine and anywhere else, and so being sure that we're there for them.